Today on Locked On Red Wings, we cover the potential offensive trade candidates on the Red Wings, and we also preview that matchup against the Carolina Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty, also host at Locked On Tigers. And as we speak, it is 2:20 in the morning because I just got home from the Tyler, the Creator concert. That was a crazy concert. I'm drinking a Coke at 2:20 in the morning. And Scotty, also host at Locked On Tigers, might have baseball to talk about soon.
Knock on wood, baby.
Maybe.
No, it's yeah. If I'm looking at my phone during recording a lot, it's I got a live feed of updates here. I got my phone blowing up every 10 minutes with updates from like 90 different people. So it's a lot. We got a lot going on at
To
the
be
present
fair,
moment.
Scotty, half those texts are just me flirting with you.
In the middle of recording?
Oh, yeah. When I look down, it's me just texting you going, you look cute today, buddy. Ridiculous. Anyways, Scotty, we're going to talk about that offensive. Oh, you made a face.
So I'm going to be making a lot of faces. You're just going to have to.
Yeah.
I just got an update on the new imposed luxury tax and whether that's being agreed upon and the new
Something about shift restrictions I saw.
Yeah, now they're bringing shift restrictions into it. There's a lot going on, but we're rolling. We're balling.
Well, as the trade deadline approaches for the Red Wings as well, we got a lot to talk about with that. We've covered the defense and the goaltending, and today we're going to touch on the forward group, the forward core. There's 3 free agents in this class coming up, and we're going to discuss who those players are and what possibly the Red Wings could be getting back for them. And then at the end of the game, or at the end of the show, like always, guys, forgive me, it's 2:20 in the morning. I just worked a 14-and-a-half-hour day, but we ball nonetheless. We're going to power through this.
We ball.
We're going to cover the matchup against the Carolina Hurricanes and preview that. First, Scotty, when it comes to this forward core and that crop of upcoming free agents used as a term as trade bait, essentially. The number one guy who stands out is, of course, and we've mentioned it, and we haven't wanted to talk about the reality that it is, but Vladislav Namestnikov being, 30 years old, maybe 31 years old. He's at almost half point per game here. Let me pull it up real quick here. Oh, no, Scotty.
Vlad Namestnikov, he's a hockey player for the Detroit Red Wings.
I have to hit submit on the form.
He's currently he's got some work at the top line, but now he's probably back down to mostly the third line.
You can stop filling. I got it.
Okay,
cool. You have to jump back and forth between individual and rates to get the stats that you need.
Man, making me go off the dome. I got a million.
You're good. In 51 games played, he's got 13 goals and he's got 16 assists for a total of 23 points. Near half point per game, which is what he's been flirting with all season. Career-wise, that's been what he is. And for a player that's 29, 30 years old, right at the peak of his prime, and it's only going to last a year or two more, he is the most likely trade candidate. You can, like you said, Scotty, you could place him anywhere in the lineup, and he is going to produce. There is not a team in the NHL that could not use a guy like Vladislav Namestnikov, and that's why he is going to be the most attractive trade piece for the Red Wings come trade deadline, especially because, and I hate to say this, we love Vladislav Namestnikov here in Detroit. We really do. But unfortunately, losing him via trade also doesn't hurt you short-term as much as it does long-term either. He's a guy you can fill in if you have to. It sucks he's going to lose it because you can put him anywhere, but you have a huge ton. You got a lot of forwards that can fill roster spots right now if you lose Vladislav Namestnikov. while also getting a decent return back for him.
Yeah, for sure. No, he as much as it pains me to say, he is a one of the more expendable pieces on this roster because he's not young enough where you look at him and you go, okay, he's part of the long-term plan like the rest of the youth core. And at the end of the day, he's a half point a game player. And though when you're on an expiring deal, you're putting up half a point a game, and you're older than the core that is currently established by I mean borderline a decade for some of them, right? That makes it a very viable and a player that in hockey terms is very easy to get rid of.
Yeah, and with his when you talk about like the more advanced metrics like expected goals for percentage, he sits at 45.75, which means when he's on the ice, the team produces 45% of the quality scoring or quality shots taken in the game. Well, that means the opponent takes 55%. Now that seems bad because you want it to be 50% or over, but when you look at the Red Wings expected goals for percentage overall, it sits at 45%. So she's right on par with what the Red Wings are doing overall. When you look at his relative numbers, I believe I'm going off the top of my head here while I wait for the submission to go. He's like negative 0.33. So it's very minimal the impact he's having off the ice versus on the ice. He's just that is the player that Vlad Namestnikov is. He's a guy exactly like I was saying. You can slide anywhere in the lineup, and he's going to fit in comfortably. And you put him on a better team, he's going to look better. You put him on a worse team, he's going to still look fine. He's not. I mean, this is the Detroit Red Wings team that's been flirting with 500 all season long, and all of his statistics, half point per game, relative expected goals for percentage of basically zero. You know, his expected goals for percentage is right on par with the Red Wings as a team. Like that is the type of player he is. He's going to fit in no matter where you slot him on any team, and that's why realistically you probably get the most out of a guy like Vlad Namestnikov, especially with a guy just as likable as Vlad Namestnikov is. That's not going to add much to his trade value, but he's not going to be a problem in any locker room you add him to. Which leads me to my next question, Scotty. Like, for a guy like Vlad Namestnikov, what are you expecting to get back, especially on that expiring deal?
I'd if we got a notification that said Vlad for man,
It's tough.
I'd be thrilled with a second. I'd understand the value of a third.
Yeah, see, I'm honestly like I'm trying to push. Obviously, we've talked a lot about our biases, and I'm a huge Vlad Namestnikov fan ever since he's joined the Red Wings. I'm trying to push my biases out the window, and you know he's only got a few more months left on his contract that pays him $2 million a year. I struggle to see him even netting a third round pick right now, and I guess it depends on what the market is set at. But I think a fourth round pick, if it was a straight like player for a draft pick. Fourth round pick is probably realistically what you could get for a guy like that. Now, Yzerman's known for his fleecings, but like if I'm trying to put a value on a guy like Vlad Namestnikov, fourth round pick is where it's at because he's a guy on an expiring deal who's a half point per game player. Like it's nothing wowing you. Now, we can talk about hypothetical. If you package him and whatnot, you could probably get a higher deal and like take contract back. But if you're looking 1-for-1 trade, player for draft pick, a fourth, or maybe if you want to, a fifth and a sixth, like that's where I just pin his value. Maybe a third if you trade him to a team that's horrible at making trades, like the Vegas Golden Knights, which is just handing out draft picks. But I mean, it's hard to find a team that also needs depth scoring like that. Most teams at trade deadlines go out to acquire that final piece, not necessarily depth guys, and they do occasionally acquire depth guys. Like Patrick Nemeth got traded to the Avalanche just last year, but it's not very frequent.
Yeah, no, he's like I said. If you're talking about all the dudes on the offense, Vlad is easily the most expendable. It sucks to say because everyone loves him. You know, I don't mean expendable in a personal way, but in
he just has the most value.
In pure hockey sense, I mean most value. I guess of the pieces that are on the block, maybe. I mean, like
all the
obviously
pending UFAs, you know.
Sure. he's just he's the easiest to move.
Yeah.
He makes the most sense to move on from out of pretty much anybody. I would argue on the entire roster, offense, defense, goalies, all put together. Vlad's situation is comfortably the easiest to part ways with and actually get a decent return from.
That being said, I'd rather see them sign an extension, but that's just my bias talking. BetOnline.net. Football might be over for the season, but hockey is in full swing for both pro and college hockey. That Michigan Wolverines ranked second heading into the tournament. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next coach is going to be, next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds, right to the Olympic coverage and information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline.
BetOnline.
Where the game starts. All right, Scotty, we talked about Vlad Namestnikov and how he's likely the most likely candidate to get traded just because of the deal he's on, his performance this season, just his production. But there are two other players who are on expiring deals, which would make them attractive trade targets. And I'm talking about Sam Gagner and Carter Rowney. Carter Rowney, obviously, this year was signed to the contract to be a depth forward. He just came off of injury. He actually had a pretty advanced, analytically impressive game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Had like a 60 goals for percentage. I don't know what was going on with that one, Scotty. That one baffles me.
The players are calling it a night, by the way. So I'm all yours for the rest of the show.
Oh, so it's not happening?
Okay. I have been telling people for months now that this made up February 28th deadline is made up. The owners made it up. It's not real. There's no court out there that's like, oh, the season you have to have a deal by the 28th. This was fabricated by the owners as a negotiation tactic. It is not real. It has never been real. In 1990, there was a lockout. And in that lockout, they got a deal done 2 weeks after the owners, it has to be done by now or else we're not playing a full 162. And they still played a full 162. They just delayed opening day by a week. It has never been real. And they just said today that the players are going home. The owners are going home, to their hotels. They're going to power nap for like 5-6 hours, come back tomorrow. And now the deadline is magically 5 p.m. tomorrow. Oh, whoop-de-doo. It's almost like I know what I'm talking about. So, no deal tonight, but I actually am fairly confident that there will be a deal by 5 p.m. tomorrow.
Yeah,
Back to hockey.
If they're going to move the deadline till 5 p.m. tomorrow, it seems pretty obvious that there's a deal coming by 5 p.m. tomorrow.
All of your leverage with the deadline BS, too. All of it. And they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't play that hand and lose all that leverage unless a deal was close.
Yeah,
Thank
the deal
you.
Feels close.
Back to hockey. Back to Vlad and how much we love him.
Yeah, we love Vlad. Carter Rowney and Sam Gagner are the other two team players that are going to be free agents. Just other guys who are just depth forward pieces that could go to a team that maybe needs one or two more guys if they're struggling with injury problems. But let's be honest, those two guys don't have a lot of value. If I recall correctly, we got Sam Gagner out of he was a player we got back out of selling another player off. I can't quite remember the trade that happened.
Who?
I might be completely off base. Sam Gagner. I believe we got him out of a trade. He was just a secondary piece that we got, and he stuck around as a guy that we've liked. I could be completely off base on that one, as I don't recall correctly, and I don't have it up in front of me right now. But yeah, it's these. They're guys, they're bodies. They're warm bodies. And so even though they're expiring deals, I don't expect them to be very attractive trade pieces here at the deadline. So if you were to get anything at all for them, I wouldn't expect it to be very much.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're talking about dudes that are fourth line wingers for a team that's under 500. Like, you know what I mean? Are not necessarily youths either. So I don't expect too much out of those guys, but Vlad is definitely a big one. If you had to name, I have mine, like an under the radar Anthony Mantha type shock the world deal. Do you have do you have and I'm not, obviously this is pretty much setting ourselves up for failure because these won't happen and they're total shots in the dark, but if
Dylan
any,
Larkin.
okay, let's be, mine is Burt.
No, that's not. See, and before the season started, you wouldn't get a lot of hate for that because I think a lot of people had a mindset that Tyler Bertuzzi was possibly a movable trade piece come the deadline this season, but he's gone out there and performed
Absolutely. He's not getting
remarkably.
traded.
No,
He's
there's
not.
no way. He's
But
proven himself as a
but
cornerstone of this team.
if you had to, exact, and I 100% agree. I'm just saying if there was like a dark horse candidate for you, Bert's situation, even with the great season he's had, his contract situation and all that, still sets yourself up for the ability to move him if you wanted to. And the return for that would have to be insane, and he's not getting traded. But of the more solidified people on the team that aren't on expiring deals, if you were forced to rank the odds of those guys being traded, I mean, Burt would certainly be higher than Larkin plus the rookies.
So I actually do have a legit answer. Larkin was obviously me just messing around with you. But this one's kind of based on recent history, and I think there's actually some sense to this one, and that's Robby Fabbri. Just signed that shiny new extension for $4 million a year. He go to a team that's looking for an effective offensive production player who is on a solid contract. I mean, it's $4 million a year for a guy who's at 26 years old and is also, another guy who's producing at about half point per game. He's been a top 6 winger and can also slot in at center if need be. I mean, you look at they signed a guy, they did the same thing with Thomas Tatar and Anthony Mantha. They signed him to extensions and then dealt them for a haul. You got a first, a second, and a third round pick from the Vegas Golden Knights for Thomas Tatar in what was Ken Holland's best trade of his entire GM career, maybe best trade in his entire GM career, definitely up there. Then Steve Yzerman extends Mantha, deals him to the Washington Capitals for Jacob Vrana, a first, I think a third, and Richard Panik. And I mean, part of those draft picks you got back were because of taking on Panik's contract.
Salary, yeah.
But I mean, you're looking at a guy with Robby Fabbri who's got 3 new years on his contract coming up here, at $4 million a year, who's 26 years old in the prime of his career and is an effective top 6 winger. You could get a first round pick for a guy like Robby Fabbri because, I mean, that's an attractive trade piece for a team that's looking to, have their window open for the next few years.
For sure. I think the difference being, if you were to compare it to the Mantha situation, the Red Wings as a team were on the outside of their competitive window looking in. And I think the Fabbri extension happened because they now believe that this is year one of, okay, like we're trying to be competitive again. And again, I guess I'm rebuttaling 2 things that aren't going to happen. And we're, you know what I mean? They're long shots, and they're long shots for a reason. It was just for the sake of discussion. I just wanted to ask, but
I mean, is it that much of a long shot though? Like we would have said the same thing about Anthony Mantha last season, and then he got dealt. I said the same thing about Thomas Tatar 3 years ago, and I'm not trying to say that Robby Fabbri's gonna be traded, but Robby Fabbri's 26 years old. By the time this team's ready to compete, is he really going to be a key part of this team? I mean, they must think so if they sign him to the extension, obviously. But I'm not saying he's not off the table.
No, I don't think anybody except Larkin and the rookies is off the table.
I mean, you got a guy with a relative goals for percentage of 6, an expected goals for percentage relative of 7.53. So on this team, when he's on the ice, compared to when he's off the ice, he's producing 7 more scoring chances. Like he's a positive impact on a team that's, a game or 2 below 500. I mean, that's an attractive player for a team that's good.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think I mean, he's 26, and you asked, if he's going to be a relevant piece when this team's competitive again. I think the plan is to be competitive next year, dog. Like, I think, you know what I mean? I don't think we're looking I don't think this is the rebuild years anymore. I don't think we're looking like, oh, we need to make moves for 2-3 years down the road, or else we'd be selling off anybody for any pick.
True. That's true.
I think the belief is next year we kick this thing and make a playoff run next season. And with that, I think you extending Fabbri and then moving him. I mean, as you said, he's been fantastic. Trading your 26-year-old second line winger when you're trying to be competitive next year for picks. I guess you could say the same thing about Bird and his situation, but his contract situation is a little different. I don't know. Like we said, this that was just me bringing that up for like, if there was we all know that the expiring contracts are all going to be on the table. So I was more just wondering if there was anything off. I mean, Suter is one too. We didn't really talk about that.
Yeah, he's one I want to mention too.
I think is very feasible. On his pre-Guelph line being formed was not very productive. Guelph line happens. That whole line has now been productive. The only problem is the Wings have like the shallowest center depth in the history of mankind, and I'm not sure that even on a selling team, even if you're selling pieces, I'm not sure you can afford to dish a center, even on a year that you're kind of throwing in the towel on. So it's gonna be a heck of a deadline, baby.
No, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know the Red Wings are gonna be that active. We've broken down like there's only like realistically 2 trade pieces on this team that are any attractive, and that's Nick Leddy and Vladislav Namestnikov. There's a bunch of other what if scenarios that could take place, but like you said, Scotty, this is what feels like the final year of the true rebuild. It feels like because of the massive step they took forward, there's not a lot of trading that's going to take place here in this off season, this trade deadline. So I think that it's going to be a pretty quiet deadline. And we're far from done talking about the trade deadline. It's still 3 weeks away. But like this is like our first thoughts on who's going to get dealt. We also got to talk to you guys about the Carolina Hurricanes that's coming up here tonight. But before we get to that, got to talk to you guys about Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the parts only front brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using rockauto.com. Why choose to spend 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or a car dealership? Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer, almost at every country. They have everything you could need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. So go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck right locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts you will ever need. rockauto.com. Scotty, the Detroit Red Wings are going to face off against those Carolina Hurricanes. As I say in the cold open that didn't get that isn't airing for this game episode because I butchered it. Yeah, I think this is this is the first time they're meeting this season. I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me look. Okay.
I don't recall.
It is not.
The Carolina Hurricanes are a team.
They played December 16th, and the Hurricanes won 5-3.
Who scored in that game? Do you have a
want me to
box
pull up
score?
the-
If it's
You're gonna make me pull up the box
No.
score,
If it's a
too?
hassle, don't
No,
worry
it's
about
fine.
it. I was
I
just
got it.
trying to remember. I was trying to jog my memory.
The dog Sam Gagne, Dylan Larkin, and Tyler Bertuzzi.
Gagne
Scored against the Leafs.
Selection of this game.
Happened 2 days before the Devils game, where Larkin had his first career hat trick.
Right, I remember that game.
And that was the last game before the COVID shutdown.
All right, cool. So this is our second game against Carolina. Put up 3 in the first. Gave up 5, though. I remember it vividly. Really, really crazy game.
What is happening?
You're
so
we're
ridiculous.
We're both so exhausted. The goaltending situation. Who's in net tonight, Brian?
Oh, dude, that is the question. honestly, you got to go Grice. Like, Nedeljkovic is continued to play like bad lately, like straight up bad. And Grice is, he's another UFA who we've talked about. You kind of can put him on display, although he had really piss poor performance in relief of Alexander Nedeljkovic. But like, I feel like this is Grice's time to shine here, where he can really prove what he's got. Maybe get a suitor at the trade deadline for a team that needs a backup goaltender, because there are teams out there that need backup goaltenders here ahead of the trade deadline. So I feel like it's going to be Grice.
And
of course, I'll be wrong, but
I kind of want to go Ned.
It's tough, man, because after that performance against Toronto, my faith is shaking.
Grice was not good either. Grice had the second period.
Oh, no, that's what I mean. Like, it's tough to choose because they both were really bad.
Yeah, exactly. It is, man.
Nedeljkovic's save percentage on the season is down to 903. Like, it's fallen off. Like, remember at one point it was close to 920, and he's been struggling lately, and it's showing up on the stat sheet, man. He has not been as good. Like, we were talking about him being in the Calder conversation again, and as of late, he just hasn't been as good. Now, and by no means am I selling him down the river. Like, am I like giving up on Alexander Nedeljkovic? He's a young goaltender, well, young by goaltender standards, who's hit a rough patch in his rookie, in air quotes, season. He's not used to this kind of workload. This isn't the kind of workload he's used to. He's already played more games than he did last year with the Carolina Hurricanes. Yeah, he only played 23 games last year for the Hurricanes. So he's already played 14 more games than he's used to. The workload's probably getting to him, as they do a lot of young players in the league.
Yeah, I would imagine. Made me lose faith in Ned as a future piece to this team. Like, none of this has made that waver for me. I still fully think that that Ned can be I still have Ned Kosa. That's the goaltending situation in the future. You know what I'm saying? Like, this has not changed my opinion of Ned going forward, but in the present, he's been right. I don't know, man. I think I'm gonna go Ned though, because oh my goodness, maybe I don't. I think okay, I'm gonna go Ned. I'm locking in. I'm going Ned. I think that they want him to get back on Friday. They want 2 periods, they weren't good. Grice had 1 period, he wasn't good. And I think they would rather, because both of their last outings were bad, they would rather go with the kid.
I hear you, man. I just don't know. It's really, you know what? I will say this, though. We got to remember who the Red Wings are playing against. We're talking about who's going to start against Carolina. This is Ned's team. Like, this is definitely a prove-it game for you. So, you know what? I'm going to change my answer solely because of that. Like, I would find it so hard if I can't get into the mind of Jeff Blashill. So that's a tough one. But it feels like putting Nedeljkovic in that against his old team, the team that traded him because they didn't want to give him the money, would be the perfect, like, this is your chance to prove them wrong. And he already was in that, I believe, the first time that they played each other, back in December.
I remember it really well. Yeah, he was.
I hate you so much, Scotty. But, these are the types of games where, like, this is your prove it, man. This is your chance to prove them wrong for what they did. And they didn't want to pay you, and they traded a rookie who was a Calder finalist. So, yeah, I'm changing my answer solely based on that it's got to be net. There's going to be other games before the trade deadline for Grice to prove himself here and get himself a suitor. But, like, I feel like it's got to be Ned just based on the fact that he's playing the team that gave up. Maybe a Pew suitor? Yeah, maybe.
Get it?
No, I can't wait. Can you explain it to me?
Okay, so you said suitor.
Yeah.
And then I said Pew suitor.
Yeah.
So the name sounds like suitor.
Like SUITOR?
Yeah, that's what you said.
What are we doing? This is a dead dumb bit. Anyways, so we've discussed the goaltending situation now. Carolina Hurricanes, who are what, third in their division, first. Holy cow! Where have they first in the Metropolitan Division? They're so good. What's going to be the X factor in this game? I mean, the Red Wings are coming off 2 bad losses. One loss where I said that they had no defense, and then the second loss where the defense got even worse against the Toronto Maple Leafs. What is the X factor in this game? And I feel like I just set you up for the answer.
I mean, it's pretty much impossible to not say the goaltending after you gave up 10 goals, or I guess the defense. Sure, the defense.
You pick one, I'll pick the other.
Yeah, right. The defense, I guess. Like, you just gave up 10, dog. In a game where you scored 7. So clearly the offense is not the problem. Yeah, I mean, it's going to come down to every defender who doesn't have Cider on the back of the jersey. That's pretty much my X factor from now and for the rest of the season, probably.
Yeah, and if you're going to go with the defenseman, I'm going to go with the goaltender. Well, no matter what goaltender's going to be in that, they got to play a better game than they did on Saturday against Toronto, and the game before that on Wednesday against Colorado. Like, you cannot continue to let in goals at the clip that you're doing. Like, if this team is serious about remaining competitive and pushing for the playoffs, like they say they are, they can't lose games like this the way they have been. It's just not. It's not sustainable.
No, I mean, yeah, 10 goals, not sustainable. Yes, I completely agree with that take. Good take, Brian.
Thank you. I'm a good take machine.
Absolutely.
Thanks for making Locked On Red Wings your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Hosts Steele Roden and Flip Livingstone help you become the expert of your fantasy league. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Scotty and I will be back well rested with a game recap tomorrow. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.